This is the show where we delve into those stories that only entrepreneurs can tell. Now, nearly 20 years ago, when I started working as a journalist on this continent, we still had typewriters. The news came to us on paper, spewing out of huge clattering machines called a telex. Now it's all in the blink of an eye. With internet and broadband, you can chat with anyone, anywhere in the world. As with every change, there comes opportunities. Now, one of them was spotted by our guest this week, Linda Ravenhill. Now, she started life as a nurse and one day struck on an idea that could make money by using the web to communicate, teach, and make money. Welcome, Linda. Just to say a little bit about yourself, where did you start life?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. Well, I was born originally in Zimbabwe and was schooled there, and then moved to South Africa for my teenage schooling and entered into the Charlotte Macleay Academic Hospital, where I trained to become an ICU nurse. I think it's quite a departure into the internet.
But it was very difficult times when you became. This country was going through political turmoil. Must have been very tough times for you.
I think it was an interesting time to be in medicine, an interesting time to be a nurse. Certainly in Johannesburg, we not in our initial training, but once we moved into ICU, we were very involved in the riots, etc., in Soweto as part of the ICU side of things. And yes, it was very trying times. I think I learned a lot of lessons that have held me in good stead in what I'm doing now.
And what were the worst of times there?
I think, firstly, we were very young, and I think to have to cope with, firstly, what you see, the incidences that you see, and secondly, to manage a team around you, because once you move into ICU, you obviously then manage a team of nurses underneath you. So to manage and guide that team through those really hectic times. One incident when it was still the Johannesburg General, there were riots in the actual hospital, and we were managing about 4 wards then, and we actually had to go into lockdown. I think I was 21, managing a whole school of team underneath and still managing to give good care to your patients and navigate through that was interesting.
How difficult was that, and how do you think it helped you in latter years when you faced the tough job of becoming an entrepreneur?
I think nursing is unique in that you learn to cope under enormous pressure. You have to think on your feet, you learn logic. For a woman. So you learn logic, and that certainly helped me with the internet side of things. So I think the coping with the pressure, the understanding that there's a systematic approach to everything is what nursing taught me. And those skills, even though I didn't maybe see it then, it's definitely now I understand that's what's made me successful.
And then when you left nursing, you went to work for the Medical Association.
Correct.
And then one fine day, you had an idea.
I did.
How did it come to you?
Once as you say, I worked for the Medical Association and then was involved in the internet from its very infancy stages, 1997, as you said, we were talking earlier, 1997, and got very involved with the medical side of the internet, which was really, very, very elementary in those days. Then moved into the more development side of the internet, opened my own business and started focusing on accessibility design, which is developing systems for users with physical impairments. And it was during that stage, back in 2004, 2005, that I started realizing there has to be a better way to communicate. Because the internet was really hectically text-based up until that time. Skype was just starting out, YouTube wasn't even here. And I thought, if you're trying to communicate with someone, nothing does it better than face-to-face. So I actually can't tell you when I hit upon the idea of genius, or the genius idea of video, but I did. And you can imagine everyone said to me, don't be ridiculous. You'll never get it to work. So I'm not very good with someone who tells me I can't do something. So we started working on that and really started applying all our resources, closed down the original development company to focus on making this video work. And we hammered away at it and went, tried different types of technologies and different ways of doing things for about 3 years until we actually got the technology where we can now stream between 30 to 40 minutes buffer free in South Africans' bandwidth. And we've tried as far as Malawi, we can stream buffer-free video. So
just tell me, right from the first beginning, right? You had the idea,
yep.
Somebody told you, no, it can't be done. Are you mad? So that was the next bit you needed. But the next bit, what was the very, very first step that you took?
I think we started researching. So first of all, we I took some footage, normal video footage off a television clip, just a 5-minute clip, started playing around with just different types of formats of the actual video, because I thought, well, that's got to be where you start. Then we put it on our web server, and we put it into we built a very elementary player, and we realized that didn't work. So we started just trying different technologies of the actual player, which is the window that you view the video in. We started trying to play with that and see what would work, and we've teamed up with a couple of people overseas who were doing open source technologies there, and I think we learnt a lot from that collaboration. Finally built a player that would work for us, and then that still wasn't enough. So we realized it wasn't one thing, it was a lot of things that went together to make the video work.
And bearing in mind it's only 7 years ago, but that would have taken quite a lot of time to do, because it was so slow.
Yep, it took a lot of time and a lot of research, I think, painstaking research, and we are completely self-funded. You can imagine no one was going to give you money to deliver video. They all thought you were mad. So,
I mean, did you go to the banks with this idea?
we went to everybody. I was like, please. I just couldn't believe that there would not come a time that this would not work. I always say if they put a man on the moon, we can get video to work. So I just refused to believe it wasn't going to happen. And you won't believe, not even till, I would say, probably about 2 years ago, people were just saying, don't be ridiculous. This is not going to work. So we've been working for 3 years now. It was just convincing people that it actually does work. Even when, after you showed them, we've had a long, hard struggle.
But as an entrepreneur, how did you sell that idea? I mean, cast your mind back. Imagine I'm a bank manager 7 years ago, and you sit down and you say, I've got this great idea. How would you try and sell it to me?
Well, first, a picture tells 1,000 words, so we'd always say, look here, and have a look. And we're in the fortunate position to be able, I can actually film you and stream back out in the same time. Mm-hmm. So we would often do that to the bank managers, which completely freaked them out, because we'd say, look, you're on the internet. So just showing them proof of concept, I think, was very important. And then what we've done with our videos, we've obviously turned it into a medical education platform. So we would explain to them where we saw our vision going and the opportunities that exist in the medical market.
But
so
you say it freaked them out rather than impress them. I mean, surely, what do you think was the problem?
I think it was just a sense of disbelief. I think seeing yourself, if I'm sitting here talking to you, screaming back at you with your video, I just don't think they were very comfortable with that. And bear in mind, that was the early days. Mm. So YouTube, this whole kind of social networking hadn't really got rolling then. So it was very, very infant still then. And I think that was the problem, that they thought, well, it looks nice, it works nice here, but where's the real market for it?
And funny, actually, you were talking about how things had changed so fast. I mean, sad part about it is that all those years ago, when there was the riot into the hospital, that pictures would have been flying around the internet within 10 minutes these days.
Absolutely.
But then, those such things didn't exist.
No.
But, okay, and tell me the next step then. You managed to, obviously you went ahead without any big finance behind you. And you got, when was the first day you got actually up and running?
Well, we actually did little bits, snippets for people, like we'd say, well, we'll do it for you for free. So it was back in, I'd say, it was about 3 years ago, where we actually said we'd stream somebody's discussion points. It was a 5-minute clip. And we streamed that, and that went exceptionally well. And their technical department, most importantly, thought that was fantastic. And we had nothing for a long time. And then we went to one of the pharmaceutical industries and went to them and showed them what was possible from a continued medical education point of view. And they loved it. And with very little persuasion, they actually went with it, which was amazing. And we still watched the video on a landline, on a dial-up connection, because we had no ADSL. So we thought we were absolutely brilliant, and so did the client. And then from there, it's kind of moved on its own momentum. So it was about 3 years ago since we had our first
okay, if we go both ends of your operation, on this end, I mean, what do you have? I mean, perhaps you don't have a studio like this, but how do you actually put your stuff together at this end?
Okay, well, basically what we do is, as I said, we work in the medical industry. So there's a couple of environments. The first is we would go to a conference, or we would have a breakfast talk where we would, similarly to this, have a camera crew there who would film the clips for us, and then we would edit and compress, and then take those into our internet environment. So we work with 2 environments. We have a streaming environment, and then we have a web environment. And we take those clips, put it onto the internet, and then stream it back out to you, the user. Other things that we do are things like surgeries, live surgeries, where we'd go into theatre with a crew and film a surgery. That takes a little bit longer. It requires a bit of editing. Compress those clips and do the same process. So for those type of clips with a surgery, there's a much longer lead time. from
And just tell me, how difficult is it to get into film an operation underway? I mean, I think I did it about 20 years ago for news, and it was like we were trying to film, you know, the moon.
Well, I think what makes our company unique is the people who deal with the clients are all medically trained. So we have pharmacists, we have a cardiology theatre sister who works with us. So I think when we talk to the people in theatre, they know that we understand the environment, because obviously they're worried about things like infection and you getting in the way, whereas we come with an understanding of that environment already. So when we move in, we're very respectful of the environment, and we never go into theatre without a qualified, trained theatre staff person. And because we have that staff, we also have those connections in the theatre. And I think most of the academic hospitals are really excited at extending their knowledge, because right now it sits in these centres of knowledge like the Charlotte Macleay Hospital or like the Walter Sisulu Pediatric Unit. But they are interested in extending their knowledge to a bigger environment, and I think that's why it's been a little bit easier maybe for us to get into those environments.
Okay, so you've filmed an operation taking place, you've streamed it down the internet.
Right.
Now at the other end,
Yep.
who are the people, who are your customers?
Well, at the moment it's the medical professionals, so anybody in the healthcare professional, principally your doctor. For example, if we're streaming up into Africa, there's a huge need for ongoing education. So a doctor sitting in the comfort of his own home or in a tea room session logs onto the internet. You don't need anything particular to watch the video. You simply need an ADSL line or a very basic 3G connection, and he can then watch the operation or the clip online, and there's a whole series of e-learning materials that accompany that. For example, rotational PowerPoints, documentation, etc.
And for that, do you get a fee from the customer, or how does it work?
At the moment, the pharmaceutical companies are sponsoring these clips because they have a need to drive education to the medical professions. So that's where our main revenue source comes from. But I think in the future we'll be looking at things like more hospital-based training programs. We're in discussions with some of the hospital groups at the moment, driving training through the hospitals, and they'll sponsor us. And hopefully the government will see as well that there are massive opportunities for educating people. It's easy to access. You don't need anything special to get hold of the content. So I really believe that we have a huge opportunity here.
Okay, Linda, hold that thought there. We're going to talk more in the second half about your business and a lot of the issues that you're facing.